Okay, today we're going to completely shatter a really common myth. The illusion that vitamin B12 is just, a simple everyday energy supplement. If you've ever thought of it as just a quick pick-me-up you grab from the pharmacy aisle, well, you are in for a massive paradigm shift in this explainer. We're diving into the cutting-edge science to reveal what this tiny microscopic molecule is actually doing deep within your cellular factories.
So we really have to ask, is vitamin B12 just an energy booster, or is it actually the master guardian of your brain? We're challenging your basic assumptions right out of the gate here because the biological labyrinth this molecule navigates has severe, literally life-altering neurological stakes. As we'll uncover, lacking this vitamin doesn't just make you a little sleepy. It fundamentally rewrites your genetic expression and invites absolute molecular chaos into your central nervous system. To wrap our heads around this incredible shift, we're going to follow a structured roadmap today. We'll start with the B12 illusion, track its VIP biological journey, look at metabolic traffic jams, the lab-animal dilemma, cellular chaos and epigenetics, and finally, how it ultimately defends the brain. All right, part 1, the B12 illusion, shattering the simple energy myth. Let's start with the medical mystery surrounding B12. Because honestly, the consequences of its absence are far more terrifying than just feeling a little lethargic. The absolutely crucial point to understand here is that your brain can be quietly starving for this micronutrient for years before devastating, irreversible symptoms even appear. Things like memory loss, cognitive impairment, or symmetric weakness. See, our livers can store roughly a 3 to 5 year supply of B12, so the clock is ticking silently. By the time the clinical signs of neurological dysfunction actually surface, the underlying damage to your neurons might already be permanent. Moving into part 2, the VIP biological journey, navigating a highly secure biological labyrinth. To understand why this deficiency happens in the first place, we really have to look at the thrilling, multi-step journey a single B12 molecule takes. You can think of it as a VIP that requires a relay of distinct biological bodyguards at every single checkpoint just to survive the incredibly harsh environment of your digestive tract. So in the stomach, it binds to a protein called haptocorrin, which shields it from stomach acid. Then, as it moves into the intestine, haptocorrin drops off, an intrinsic factor steps in to safely escort it to the intestinal wall. Once it finally crosses into your bloodstream, a third bodyguard called transcobalamin takes over, carrying our VIP directly to the target cells. And those cells, they will only let it inside through a highly specific receptor called CD320. If any one of these bodyguards fails, the whole system just crashes. At the very end of this intense relay, our VIP is swallowed by the target cell's endosome. The final bodyguard, transcobalamin, degrades, dropping off the free B12 so it can finally get to work inside the cytoplasm and the mitochondria. It's honestly an incredibly delicate and beautiful biological relay race. But what happens when the baton gets dropped? That brings us to part 3, metabolic traffic jams, when the cellular factories back up. When the B12 manager never actually arrives to those cellular factories, we experience something called metabolic decompensation. Think of it like a massive factory traffic jam where the assembly line just completely stops, but the raw materials, they just keep coming in. Without B12 to process them, this toxic inventory just keeps piling up inside your cells, eventually leaking out and causing systemic damage. Without B12 to act as a crucial key for cellular enzymes, specifically the MUT enzyme in the mitochondria and the MTR enzyme in the cytoplasm, the assembly line breaks down completely. And this leads to incredibly dangerous buildups of toxic byproducts, things like homocysteine and methylmalonic acid, or MMA. This metabolic traffic jam is the classic hallmark of B12 deficiency. But as researchers are discovering, studying exactly how this traffic jam ruins our neurology is incredibly tricky. Which leads to part 4, the lab-animal dilemma, why B12 is incredibly difficult to study. When we look at our experimental models, it becomes super clear why these complex pathways make B12 a massive headache for laboratory scientists. Mice and zebrafish handle the vitamin completely differently than humans do. For example, mice entirely lack that haptocorrin bodyguard protein we talked about earlier. And even stranger, while humans store excess B12 primarily in the liver, mice use their kidneys as their main B12 reservoir. And what about zebrafish? Well, while they are great for studying the genetics of B12 metabolism, since they share a lot of the same intracellular metabolic genes that we do, they are practically useless for studying cellular absorption. Why?
because they don't even have the required CD320 receptor that human cells use to pull the vitamin inside. This basically forces scientists to piece together the human B12 puzzle using fragmented clues from completely different species. Onward to Part 5, Cellular Chaos and Epigenetics, the terrifying new frontier of B12 research. Let's look way beyond just the metabolic traffic jam, because B12 deficiency actually triggers absolute molecular chaos. Without it, your cells run out of a molecule called SAM, which is the universal methyl donor. That means your cells literally lose the ability to properly methylate DNA and histones. It completely rewrites your genetic expression. At the exact same time, without B12, immune cells forcefully shift their energy production toward a pro-inflammatory state. And on top of all that, we see massive accumulation of reactive oxygen species, meaning rampant, highly damaging oxidative stress inside the brain. This molecular chaos directly cascades into neuroinflammation. That accumulating toxic homocysteine we mentioned earlier, it directly drives up beta amyloid production in the brain. It also triggers inflammatory markers and alters synaptic remodeling. It's just a devastating chain reaction of cellular distress, and it stems entirely from the lack of this single vitamin. Finally, Part 6, Defending the Brain, the macroscopic stakes of microscopic failures. Ultimately, this microscopic chaos connects B12 deficiency directly to the pathology of our most feared neurodegenerative diseases. In Alzheimer's disease, the lack of B12 drives lipid oxidation and impairs protective myelin. In ALS, it fuels deadly oxidative stress and mitochondrial dysfunction. In multiple sclerosis, it accelerates severe demyelination and neuroinflammation. The science is undeniably showing us that B12 isn't just some background player. It is an active, frontline defender of your neurological integrity. Furthermore, as researchers have noted, B12 actively maintains your gut-brain immune equilibrium. It is a crucial cofactor for the healthy microbes living in your gut. So this means a lack of B12 completely destabilizes your body's natural anti-inflammatory defenses right from the bottom up, altering peripheral immunity and breaking down that protective homeostasis between your gut and your brain. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought. Are you taking the master guardian of your brain for granted? What you put into your body today, or maybe what your body fails to absorb today, could quietly be setting the stage for your entire cognitive reality decades from now. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive in today's Explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll catch you next time.